piece, my podcast is called Fear of the Free Child. We use personal narrative and critical analysis to connect communities and increase communication for Black, indigenous, and people of color who practice self-directed education, unschoolers, and folks practicing liberation-minded learning. We get together and share through my podcast. I've been podcasting since July of 2016, and I started the podcast because my family has been unschooling for some time, and constantly one of the questions that I get from other Black folks or other people of color is, oh, how do you manage to do it as a person of color? Is this something that is accessible? Where are the communities? Or I come across people who are practicing it, but want to expand their community, want more people around them to understand it. And so we kind of sort through what that looks like and sounds like as well. To share and promote Fear of the Free Child, I have a website. I use SEO, just the bits that I know, to increase my visibility and my page ranking. I also use Instagram primarily to share each episode. And then I've also been using Patreon to go even deeper into the things we talk about on the podcast. And then that also increases the visibility because, the more somebody gets out of what you share, the more they also want to share it. In terms of what's been the most effective, for me, it's really just been authenticity. Because an episode, for me, it might be the most listened to, but I don't consider that more effective than the one that had the most impact. So my measure of effectiveness is getting the feedback that something they heard in an episode inspired change or growth in a positive way. The way that I do that is through being really authentic. And also making sure that the voice of my podcast is collaborative. It's not just my opinions. It's also me backing up and amplifying other opinions about self-directed education. I make audiograms because it makes it super easy for me to succinctly share a juicy bit of the podcast. It's not always a complete thought, but it's always an engaging thought. And I find audiograms to be one of the easiest ways to just get people to say, I care about this. I want to hear more. Or, oh, that's not for me, because that's okay too. My current podcasting setup, because I am location independent, is super simple. A MacBook Pro, and I have a Samsung Q2U USB mic. And really, that's all I use. My iPad, I sometimes record audio on that, but mainly it's my MacBook and this Samsung. Well, I have two mics. I have the Blue Yeti and I also have the Samsung Q2U. And I find that this one that I'm using right now, the Samsung, is the one that I carry around all the time. So I just plug that into my laptop and then I just use voice memos to record it. Sometimes I use Audacity and then I edit some basics in Audacity, just some super basics, and send it over to my audio guy, Juan, who makes it sound really, really nice. And in terms of how it's changed since I started, I had the Blue Yeti and I was using that one primarily. At first, it was my dream microphone. And I had my pop filter and wanted to be in one specific location. But now I really just try to get the best sound that I can using the least equipment that I can, because that makes the most sense for my lifestyle. One thing that I find underrated in podcasts is testing out what might be a good fit for your primary listenership. I think a lot of us get really hung up on formatting. This is the format of a podcast. This is what these successful podcasts sound like. But some of those are successful because they have a unique sound. And now other people are trying to copy that and they can't, because that's really specific to that audience, that host, that energy. Not that I'm the expert, but my opinion is that if we were more focused on just being honest and open with our audience and ourselves and being willing to de-school from the idea that the perfect format is going to make everything make sense. I think we'd have a lot more fun in podcasting, and we'd have a lot more engaging podcasts. If someone was only to listen to one episode of Fear of the Free Child, I would recommend episode 74. So that's raisingfreepeople.com/74. That one is an explanation of what it means to raise free people. I don't have a favorite podcast, but I do know and love that there are a lot more unschooling and other forms of self-directed education podcasts coming from more diverse groups of people. I think that's pretty dope, and I'm here for it. One question I have is, are there any minimalist podcasters out there who feel like they have a super easy, super light setup that makes for great sound? I'd love to know, like, iPad tricks. I have an iPad Pro 10.5 inch, and just other tips and ideas of lightening even more a podcast setup and still getting good quality sound.